to winning that's the French League One title. But then you talk about PSV Eindhoven and Ajax Amsterdam. There in that's the Dutch league for Ajax. The spent maybe as a bit of that's at the start of the season at the bottom of the standing, and as it is, they are closer to win. They are closer to winning the Dutch title for the 2024-2025 football season. Outside this, we talk about the world of basketball, where of course less than a month, well, the basketball calendar definitely would be over. Where we talk about what that's the playoff picture are set to get clearer as teams book their positions. So we'll take a look at it conference by conference at the sides that also maybe that's in that age of playing in the playoffs for the NBA season. Well, so these and so many more we'll discuss on today's edition of the program. The Miami Open Finals also is on lock for us this lovely afternoon. We'll discuss about that major upset, Jakub Mensik, this man defeating Novak Djokovic in what was a match of maybe a lifetime for Novak. Well, he has the opportunity to do more as he aims to win his 100th title, just to become the third man in the Open era to have that's over 100 victories. That's in the world of tennis. So once again, you are listening to the voice of Oluwatimilai SAMIES on the program this afternoon, and I have Blessing Fowowe with me. That's on the show this afternoon, but she's not present in the studio, but outside the city of Ibadan. Last Monday, she was present with us in the studio, but for today, she's back at the base, and we do this. We say home away from home. That's where she's doing this. Good afternoon, Blessing.
What if I pull up a surprise package and just show up in the studio again?
Let's see how it goes.
But hey, I mean, it's good to be back here again on the show. I mean, what a lovely weekend we have from the, world of sports. Lots of, surprising results, if I may add, particularly with AC Milan, like you mentioned, what exactly is going on with that team. And maybe one other thing that struck me today, opening of the news to read is that Novak Djokovic got knocked out by a 19-year-old, is it 19-year-old or around
19.
20-year-old? Okay,
19-year-old.
19-year-old, exactly. So maybe it's time for us to start, bringing up the agenda.
Well, bringing up the agenda. Well, a lot of people. Who's your goat? Actually, tell me, who's your goat?
Are you asking?
No,
If you have been listening to me for so long and you don't know, no, they already know.
Let the world know again.
They already know. You are the only one that don't know. They already know.
Okay.
Anyone that's been listening to me for the past how many years know who my goat is. So don't ask.
Okay. She said I shouldn't ask. But should we start straight up from that front, or we just start discuss about a bit of football story?
Yeah. I mean, let's just kick it off from there. Honestly, let's just kick it off from there. And when I talk about agenda, I'm just thinking to myself. I think he's 37. Speaking of Djokovic, he's 35 or 37 or thereabouts. And then his biggest rivals, as the case may be, my goats, Rafael Nadal and Roger Federer, they are no longer in the picture. So you could start thinking about maybe age is catching up to him, or maybe these young stars, these young players who a lot of people have wondered if they could ever find a way to kick him off. So maybe it's time. Maybe it's just about time that they are beginning to kick him off the tour, because it was it was a surprise for me really when I read the news to see that he's been knocked out. And I did read somewhere that his hands were probably shaking or something. So
it wasn't knocked out.
I don't know. Maybe
he was defeated in the finals. He was not knocked out. He was defeated in the finals.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, the finals. Yeah. So I mean, first off, getting to the finals is, I think it's Djokovic anyway. He always knows how to fight himself, get himself into those positions. But getting knocked out by a 19-year-old who you want to say has never before been heard about. I think that's really, I don't think it should bring a lot of questions anyway. But for the 19-year-old, but for Djokovic, maybe in the sense that what's going on? But to see that he still gets to the finals or some of these events, I think it's impressive on its own. But maybe when I say agenda again, is it time for him to start, looking for a way to ease himself out of the tour, out of the game?
I think that has been something that we've discussed about, especially for the majority of the year 2024, where he had a limited game time. But for Novak, he defeated Jakub Mensik in that's Shanghai Masters. That was the only time they met prior to their meeting late last night. We'll talk about Nigerian timing. And for this one, it's actually a great one. And you talk about the one for ages. We had the match between the 37-year-old and that's Mensik was the biggest age gap difference in Masters 1000 final and the biggest age gap of any tour level since the year 19 76. So you talk about Novak also, well, aging like fine wine. He's doing this so well, where of course lots of players are unable to maybe get a glimpse of his own racket. But you talk about the likes of Yannick Sinner and maybe Carlos Alcaraz in this present
Daniel Medvedev
Daniel
somewhere there as
Medvedev,
well.
yeah,
Daniel
in this
Medvedev,
in
yeah.
this in this present time. But then kudos to Novak Djokovic. Semi-finals of the Australian Open. He didn't compete in the Miami, that's in the Indian Wells, but in the Miami Open, you see where he is. He got to the finals. So let's see what the future also will hold for Novak Djokovic. We know that the coming months we have the Roland Garros, that's the French Open. But then for Arina Sabalenka, also the world number one, she defeated Jessica Pegula to win the Miami Open. And you could tell that this also is a great fun for that the world number one. After missing out on you talk about the Indian Wells. Now she won another title for herself. Right, let's move away from tennis stories at this point and quickly talk a bit about football. We have started from the European scene, not necessarily England, but for FC Barcelona, they remain unbeaten in 2025, having gone 20 games without recording a loss this year under Hansi Flick. But then in the Spanish La Liga, it's all about this side wanting to win the title as they have that advantage over Real Madrid there in the Spanish La Liga. Both sides were victorious, and you could tell that in the space of 4 days, it's 2 games played for FC Barcelona. And the head coach, Hansi Flick, has urged his players to embrace that the scheduling of games. Well, we saw on Wednesday, was it Wednesday or Thursday, where
it was on Thursday, actually.
Jules Koundé, the Barcelona fullback, it came out to discuss about the scheduling, saying it's not fair, even as it is their passion to play football. They are no machines, and this also will definitely have a toll on their body. You know, coming back from international duty just to come back straight into action, not having enough time.
But first of all, I don't think they should complain that much. I really don't think they should complain because that was a rescheduled game. That was no fault of anybody, not even the club. Remember, the game was supposed to play, but we heard about the death of their doctor exactly. So I do not think the players should be coming out to complain in that instance. But that game needed to be played. We have 8 games or thereabout left to the end of the season. Where else exactly are they going to put that fixture if it's not played now? Champions League is coming up very soon. We talk about the Champions League quarterfinals, and I think they said the cup game to be played right there in the Spanish La Liga, in Spanish football as well. So it's just as hard for Copa del Rey, exactly, just as hard for any of these other teams, as it is for them. But in this particular case, it was a case of rescheduling due to an unforeseen circumstance. That was no fault of any officials, any planning or whatever. So yeah, I can understand that it's difficult for them, but it was a game that needed to be played. Especially knowing the importance that game, or anyone having an outstanding game at this point in time would probably be having on the title running with between Real Madrid, Barcelona, and Atletico Madrid. And right after that, at the week, Atletico Madrid, I think they didn't lose, or they drew their game.
They lost.
I think they lost their game exactly, which kind of gave Real Madrid. I think it was a draw.
It was a draw. 1-1. 1-1.
Yeah, I think it was a draw. Exactly. I think I remember it being a draw, which in a way gave some sort of advantage to Barcelona and Real Madrid, which they needed to take. Real Madrid, particularly when they played against Leganes, had to come from 2-1 down, to eventually win that one. He goes to 2, thanks to the brace from Kylian Mbappe, his first ever free kick in
would you
over 300 goals.
A free kick?
Well,
the question has been flying in the air.
Honestly, I was with a couple of friends during that game, and everyone was asking that how could that have been given as a free kick? But then the referees, or even the Spanish La Liga favoring Real Madrid, started flying up, all about it again. Yeah, I saw that, and I thought it was very soft. And I saw some situations in that game where Leganes should have gotten a penalty or 2 where they weren't given. So again, it is what it is. It is the game that has been given. Kylian Mbappe converted it. It is 3 points, all the way to Real Madrid. Pretty much just keeping up the chase on Barcelona rather. Atletico Madrid will be feeling hard done by because that was a winnable game for them, but somehow they dropped points. So they have to look for the next place where they can actually pick those points back.
Well, just as they are looking to for places where they can pick at those points, you take a look at the standing. Well, Barcelona they have 66 points, Real Madrid they have 63 points, and then it's just out of position for Atletico de Madrid now to maybe fight for the title, as they are 9 points behind FC Barcelona with 57 points, and Athletic Bilbao they have 53 points. But it has been somewhat of that a good turnout for that Anthony Pellegrini and Real Betis. They won that in over 35 years, if I'm correct, over Sevilla, and you tell that this also is a greater result for Real Betis. But we go on this break now. When we come back, it's time to talk about the Italian Serie A, the English FA Cup, and a bit of basketball stories. The program is still Scoreboard Reloaded right on 32 FM, and it returns right after this time out.
You're listening to 32 FM 94.9.
Tí wọ́n bá bi ọ́ léèrè pé kí o dárúkọ eré ìdíje géèmù mánigbàgbé tó dángájá, bẹ̀tánù ni ìdáhùn rẹ̀ lọ́jọ́kọ́jọ́. Ó yá tààrà ṣàṣà kí ìwọ náà bá wọn jẹ àǹfààní nínú géèmù alárinrin tó fanimọ́ra ní ìpele pẹ̀lú ẹgbẹ̀rún lọ́nà igba 200,000 owó ìkíni káàbọ̀ àti àwọn ẹ̀bùn mìíràn bẹ́ẹ̀ lọ. Bẹ̀tánù ayò ti bẹ̀rẹ̀ báyìí. Forí pípẹ́ tayò yìí o. Ó bẹ̀rẹ̀ látòrí ọmọ ọdún 18 lọ sókè. Alájọṣepọ̀ ẹgbẹ́ Aston Villa ni wá.
Feel better about your life.
32 FM 94.9, the antidote to depression.
Welcome back. The program is still Scoreboard Reloaded right on 32 FM. And of course, I have Blessing for who were with me. Well, earlier we discussed about the Miami Open finals that went down there in Florida, where Novak Djokovic was upset by that 𝐒𝐲𝐿 and Aryna Sabalenka got the better of Jessica Pegula just to win the title. That's over the course of the weekend. And then we've discussed about the Spanish La Liga, where it was a victory for Real Madrid and FC Barcelona, as we are just counting down to maybe yet another title challenge there in the Spanish La Liga. When we talk about title challenge, also we go straight to the Italian Serie A. We are from the games that went on over the course of the weekend. It's still a 3-point gap between Inter Milan and Napoli at the top of the Italian Serie A standings. For Inter, they were victorious over the course of the weekend, winning by 2-1. And then for Napoli, also they defeated AC Milan by 2-1. But outside the title race, I want to particularly discuss and ask a Blessing. Well, for Ǩ𝐶𝐈𝐒, this man, he has won a title with AC Milan. But then, I think the bigger picture was for him to come into the side and then take them out of their struggle there in the Italian Serie A. You take a look at the standing, where do they lie at this point? For AC Milan, they are 9th, and they have just 2 victories in their last 5 games. Ǩ𝐶𝐈𝐒.
Disappointing.
I'm with you.
It is heavily disappointing. Honestly, it is heavily disappointing. There's no how we want to spin it. It's disappointing how far they've come. Disappointing how they are doing at the moment, given the kind of quality of players that they have in their ranks. I mean, you look like someone like Rafael Leao, who Peter has always said, is really disappointing with his talents. And I agree with Peter 100% every time I look at him, because I'd expect that that's the kind of player that should probably be leading this next generation, quote unquote. I mean, after Ronaldo, Messi, and whatnot. I mean, these are the guys who are supposed to be stepping up to the plate and actually doing well. But you never know what you will get from Rafael Leao at any point in time. Now, credit to Gianni Reinders, who I thought he has had a good season by standard, maybe not by team standard now, because exactly, maybe not by team standard, but in his own little way, he's been able to try to effect play and impact his team somehow. He's got a little bit of freedom to operate this season, where he moves, forward. He's able to get into spaces, get into the box, and try to get a goal or at least an assist for himself. But when it comes to Rafael Leao, you just don't know what you are getting. Credit as well to Christian Pulisic, the Captain American. I thought he has been really good this season as well. But I thought Ǩ𝐶𝐈𝐒 had an issue yesterday, because how do you keep? He had Jimenez on the bench, had Rafael Leao on the bench, Chukwueze was on the bench. All these 3 players, the moment they came into that game, there was a shift, especially in the second half. There was a shift in how AC Milan approached that game. In the first half, there was not a single shot on target for AC Milan, but the moment these guys came on board in the second half, things shifted. The attack lineup shifted, and it gave Zambo Anguissa a little more to do in the midfield because Anguissa had a few days in the first half, clearing up and mopping up all sorts of passes and tackles you can think of. But the moment these three guys came on board, it was a lot more difficult, for the Napoli midfield. And the moment the coach took off Anguissa and brought off Philip Billing almost immediately. I think it was first touch or thereabout. Considered the penalty which they missed. Again, Jimenez stepped into the play and missing the penalty. I thought his selection yesterday was a problem, and that could also speak to how the season has been for them, or particularly in the last couple of games. Because if that lineup had been working, maybe you wouldn't have been tempted to try to want to tweak something. But again, they've been underperforming in terms of their potentials, and for the club of that much history as well. But again, credit to Napoli because they took the advantage. Because earlier on, Inter Milan had won their game, so they needed to win theirs, and they did that coming into the first half, blazing hot on fire. But another team that I was disappointed in over the weekend in the Italian Serie A is Atalanta. They went away to Fiorentina and couldn't really put up a fight. They lost that game. I think it was 1-0.
1-0,
courtesy
yeah.
of Moise Kean goal. Exactly. So I thought it was really disappointing with the way they performed. At some point, I thought the title race was beginning to open up yet again, only for them to lose that game at the end of the day. But hey, disappointing weekend for Atalanta. Even much more disappointing for AC Milan, who have found themselves ninth and are at risk of missing out of Europe again. It's just the inconsistency with that team over the last couple of years.
Well, talking about inconsistency, maybe we go straight to that's England now. But then, before we just get into English football, we still have more updates from the Italian Serie A, where from the games that went down over the course of the weekend, it was just a game of a fine margin also between some sides. Forretegi still tops the chart of the goal scoring, that's with 22 goals. But then out with the season, definitely a shape up. 58 points for Atlanta. And maybe this is just how many points now? 9 points still behind that's Inter Milan, who are top of the Italian Serie A standing. Well, all right, let's go straight to England before we talk about that's the NBA. We're from the FA Cup game. So we have 4 teams now. Manchester City players, their managers, they have come out to say that winning the English FA Cup, or if they peradventure win the English FA Cup, it still doesn't mark their season as a good one.
Yeah, I think I agree. It doesn't mark the season as a good one because it's been really underwhelming, across all stage for them. But I like to say I'm impressed with the runs that some of these other teams have had. First off with Aston Villa, how far they've come, still in the Champions League. Yes, is it Champions League or the Europa League? I can't
They're in
remember
the
which one.
Champions League.
But
They'll be playing
in
against
the
Paris
Champions League, yeah.
Saint-Germain.
Exactly. Still in Champions League at this stage of the competition. Nottingham Forest, for the kind of season that they've had, to also get to the semi-finals of a cup game, I thought that was actually really impressive. If they do get to the finals, it would in no small measure underline what an amazing season they've had, which has really, really shocked and surprised everyone else. And again, Manchester City being the other team, it's disappointing really for Bournemouth because I thought Bournemouth has been good as well. And then Iraola has had a good season by standard. I thought they deserved something to show for it, at least to get to the semi-finals. But hey, City sometimes when you do not expect them to do, to bring so much, that's when they surprise you and then you get to see them perform. But yeah, if they do win, I do not think it will mark their season in any way because that would be really, really short of the standard that Manchester City are known of. They could win one trophy and be better than many other teams in the league. For example, an Arsenal who probably go through the entire season without a trophy to show for it. However, what they do in the Premier League and of course the way they went out of the Champions League is always going to be a point of mention, and also how just generally underwhelming the performance has been for the City players and also for Pep Guardiola, who signed a new contract at the start of the season, and it seems like he's been out of his depth, or should I say, he has been found out by many of these other teams. But hey, the man has promised to keep to rebuild, and if he's able to do that and just bring up an amazing team yet again, it just goes on to show how much of an amazing manager he is. Now, take nothing away from what he's achieved over the course of the year, but this season definitely has left a lot to be desired of him.
All right, just as we have 4 teams, Nottingham Forest, Aston Villa, then we also have we have Manchester City also in the mix of teams in at the semi-finals of the English FA Cup. Well, quickly, as we are pressed for time, let's go straight to the NBA and talk about updates from those games. Well, games that went down in the early hours of today, and then we saw incident where 5 players and 2 coaches were ejected after the Detroit Pistons against the Wolverhampton. That's Minnesota Timberwolves, rather. Their game that went down just in the early hours of today. You tell about their coaches and also so a few of the players, Naz Reid and Dante DiVincenzo, and these players that were also tossed out of this encounter. But then, the main thing now we want to discuss about the NBA is the sides who are pushing in for the playoffs up spot. That's that we have the Cleveland Cavaliers who tops the Eastern Conference, followed by the Boston Celtics, the New York Knicks, Indiana Pacers, Detroit Pistons, and the Milwaukee Bucks. So, how impressed have you been with all of these sides? We know that for the Milwaukee Bucks, there was a time when Giannis was out of this side. And then maybe in the Western Conference, the OKC's, that's Thunder, that's the Oklahoma City Thunders. They are there. Houston Rockets, Denver Nuggets, LA Lakers, just in their game. There was no LeBron. We also have the Memphis Grizzlies and the GSWs, whom I think, maybe they have not really been doing well in their conference, but they just have a way of making it into the playoffs series, just to go all the way and maybe perform a bit of magic.
First off, I just want to start with Detroit Pistons and the game they had with the Minnesota Timberwolves. First off, Detroit this season have been one surprise package for me. They have not over the last 5, 6, 7, 10 years. They've not exactly been that team that gets to make the playoffs. Seeing that they've been able to rally around together with the former number 1 pick in 𝐾𝐑 Cunningham, who has pretty much led this team. Sadiq Bey as well. All of them they've come together. They've had a very great squad going forward. Seeing that they've clinched postseason, actually impressive run for them. But hey, when it comes to brawls in the NBA, I'm pretty sure you're not going to mention one or two without going back to the I think it was is it Thriller in Manila? I'm trying to remember the very very famous fight or brawl from years ago. Again, I think I remember one from 2 or 3 seasons ago as well. Detroit Pistons against LA Lakers, where one of the players was running after LeBron James and all that. But yeah, that's just an aside. But looking at this season generally for the entire league, Cleveland Cavaliers have been impressive. Number 1 seed in the East. At some point, it felt like they were going to equal Golden State Warriors' best run, which was 73-9. That's when they won 73 games and lost just 9. They were looking good for that, but somehow good. But hey, they've lost about 15 games in total this season, which is not, which itself is not a bad record. But yeah, it's just so good that Donovan Mitchell has been able to lead that team alongside Darius Garland. That team is doing really well. And then also for Milwaukee Bucks, since the issue with their coach, I think they brought in a new coach. I'm trying to remember his name right now. His name is keeping my mind. At some point, they kind of found difficult to find synergy. But yeah, they have found that synergy. But bear in mind that Dame Lillard is out indefinitely. It's not sure if he's going to be back before the start of the playoffs or even during the playoffs at all. So it might be some sort of pressure right there on Giannis Antetokounmpo. And of course, in the West as well, we've got the OKC Thunder, who have been one start-out team from the start of the season, and they've just continued with that in that mode to the very end. They've lost just 12 games this season. Impressive records by all means, and I do expect that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander would be named the MVP. I expect, as in any other name apart from me for MVP, then I'm questioning who exactly are those who are voting for that MVP position, because I know they could give it to Jokic again, because Jokic has won it back to back. But this time around, I really think SGA has been very good for the MVP trophy since the very start of the season. So you should just hand it over to him. But yeah, the lockdown right there in number 1 seed. But what makes the West really really exciting and interesting is what happens between the Lakers, the Memphis Grizzlies, and Golden State Warriors, all in fight for the 4th, 5th, and 6th seed. That is where the attention will be going to the end of the season.
So in the Western Conference, it's just the OKC City Thunders who have maybe automatically book the slots or sports. That
No, a lot of teams have booked their slot actually, not just OKC. I think it's just a question of is who finishes in what position. But even Golden State Warriors have booked their spots in the playoffs.
Yeah, of course. But then we know that how things can change. But let's see how it all goes. We are pressed for time and we have to leave the studio. We'll come again tomorrow, and that's in the early hours of tomorrow to talk more about sporting stories. But thank you so much to Blessing, who has failed to pull up a surprise by showing up in the studio this afternoon. Well, all right. Just as we leave the show, updates from England. Ruben Amorim says Harry Maguire and Lenny Yoro are set for Manchester United return. And Mikel Arteta also has come out to say that Bukayo Saka is ready to go against the Fulham Football Club later tomorrow. Thanks so much to everyone who has joined us until we come again tomorrow. I am SAMIES, your sports captain. Up next is the news at 4. Bye for now.